what Sark had to say because most of the questions had to focus, I guess, around what's left to do, win the national championship.
Yeah, so the two main questions were about the defense as a whole, and then, or that stuck out to me at least, and then also the red zone. That was actually the first question he got. And I'm always going to point to this because I do believe if Texas is going to win a national championship this year, it's because they moved up in red zone efficiency. 2 years ago, they were ranked 79th. They were ranked 80th. Iowa was ranked 79th in red zone efficiency. So I said, hey, they're going to be a little bit better next year, aren't they? Well, last year we were 113th. So no, they got worse. So think about that, Mark. You go 11-1 in back-to-back years. You get to an SEC championship game. You win the Big 12 championship. And you were that bad in the red zone. If this team can be the 50th best red zone offense, I think that's where obviously they will get better and they'll win a national championship.
Well, you simply brought the Iowa offense into a comparison. So anytime you want to highlight something that's that atrocious and egregious, if you can match it up against Iowa and show that it's anything close to that level of incompetency, then that drives home the point every time. Questions have to be abounding about Arch Manning, and I think everybody's pretty comfortable, aside from a few people that jump on here from time to time that just expect him to implode and not be much of a factor this year, that he's put in his time, he's put in the reps. When you put the name Manning on it, I got to think he watches as much film as anyone if he takes after his uncles. So Arch Manning, and then he gets hit, obviously, with the Ohio State defense out of the gate. But we're looking at a guy here, from what I hear, and I've seen him play very little. It was mostly in the big games in those red zone type packages, short yardage, that is going to provide them with a running element that Quinn Ewers did not. And his deep ball accuracy is supposed to be superior.
100%. Those are definitely the two big things. Another thing, Brooks Austin, the Film Network guy, does a really good job here on YouTube. Says he does the best job that he's seen out of anyone of connecting your eyes with your feet. And I think that's what will help with the deep ball accuracy. He's really good at reading through the progressions and, not making those awkward angle throws of off balance, even though he can. He has a very strong arm. He can do that. But you can tell he's been brought up to where, hey, footwork is the key thing. I'm a gigantic Peyton Manning fan. He's my favorite athlete. So to have Arch Manning here is really cool. And watching Peyton Manning, that guy was a tactician at reading defenses, footwork, all that. So I think Arch Manning definitely has some of that. And then, yeah, Quinn Ewers was good in the intermediate game, but he definitely struggled on the deep ball. I expect that to be a big part of the Texas offense. And you see in the 2020 Alabama offense that was so good with Steve Sarkisian, they were very good with Mac Jones of, cutting you a little bit with these 5 to 7 yard passes. Then all of a sudden they hit you over the top with the Jerry Jeudy, with the Henry Ruggs, with the Devontae Smith. And I think that's what you're going to see with this Texas offense. And especially, I think they're going to be really good in the play action deep game as well.
It's funny, Matthew, you may have seen my conversation with Steve Dace a couple of weeks ago. He came on, and he's not as high on Texas as most people are. He has them as a back half of the top 10 team versus everyone else that believes they probably have received more number one votes from major publications than anyone. Once I went deep on, a number of sites, Phil Steele in particular, I'm looking at this personnel and thinking, I don't see a weakness on this team myself. I just don't see a weakness. That doesn't mean they don't have things to work on, but is what would be the number one concern that you would have?
The number one glaring concern, I have two of them. It's the number 2 cornerback. I'm not 100% sure who takes that. Now, again, the talent is there. You could have 4 guys that you could throw out and say, hey, this guy had an all SEC type season, and I'd believe you. Kobe Black, Jalen Gilbo, Santana Wilson, Warren Robertson, all those guys are capable of that. Have they proven that? No. The left guard position on the offensive line is the one offensive line position I'm not sure of. Neto Umulazulu came in 2022 with Kelvin Banks, Devon Campbell, Cam Williams, 2 of those guys now off to the NFL. I haven't seen him play yet. Is he going to be good on the Texas offensive line, I'm not sure. I'm confident in Trevor Gooseby. Trevor Gooseby played fantastic versus Georgia in the SEC championship game and played fantastic versus Texas A&M when Kelvin Banks was out. I was actually shocked by that when he came in because he was a low 3-star, middle 3-star recruit, but he had all the physical tools. He's clearly put that together. I'm very confident. I'm confident Cole Hudson at center. I'm confident Devon Campbell at right guard. Right tackle's a little bit of a question, but you have Brandon Baker there, 5-star kid that everyone wanted. I expect him to be the right tackle. If he's not, Nick Brooks is a high 4-star kid that apparently the first week he was on the football field, everyone on the Texas staff pointed and said that's a future first-round pick. So I feel pretty confident along the offense line other than the left guard position.
So correct me if I'm wrong, that this line was loaded with talent last year. Obviously, Kelvin Banks was a first-round draft pick, and I think 3 guys were drafted.
Yeah.
But they didn't really perform as a dominant line the entire season like they should have.
You nailed it. So they came into the season and everyone thought this is going to be one of the best lines in college football. This is going to be one of the best lines in college football. And they were a very good line. Did they live up to my expectations for the offensive line? No. And the stat I always like to give is when we played Georgia in 2 games, we gave up 28 sacks the whole year. We gave up 15 sacks in 2 games versus Georgia. Let me repeat that. We give up 15 sacks in 2 games versus Georgia. To win a national championship, you go through Georgia, you go through Ohio State, you go through Alabama, you go through LSU, you go through Michigan's, you go through Notre Dame's. I don't really care what you do in the other games. You have to prove to me that you're an elite offensive line in those games, and they did not do that.
Are there a couple players on offense and defense that we don't know a whole lot about right now because they've been stuck behind another star, but you're expecting big things out of?
So you asked me the question last year, who are my 2 breakout players or some breakout players? I said Jahdae Barron and Gunnar Helm. I think I did pretty well with those guys. I think they were breakout players, especially Jahdae Barron. Us Texas fans have loved him. He finally got some national spotlight and he was fantastic. I think this year on the offensive side of the ball, the guy for me, he transferred in actually, is Jack Endries. I have said it. I'm going to continue to say it. When I say something, I believe it. This is not a hot take thing. I think Jack Endries is going to have the best statistical season of any tight end in the history of Texas football. I think he has that capability. That's how the tight end position is used. I think Arch Manning is going to help with that as well. So that's my guy on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, I have a couple guys. I have Leonga Lafau, the other linebacker not talked about with Anthony Hill. I think he started to play very well down the stretch. I also think someone like Alex January, who came in with Colin Simmons. Everyone knows about him from Duncanville as well, but he was a 3-star. Colin Simmons was a 5-star. He plays the defensive tackle position. I think that's a guy you're going to hear a lot about. He didn't really play that much last year other than down the stretch versus Ohio State, and I thought he played pretty well in that game, and I think he's going to have a good season this year as well.
Got Matthew Miller here breaking down Texas. Sark was at the podium along with 3 players from the Horns at SEC Media Days in Atlanta today. Quintravion Wisner comes to mind, a guy that catches the ball out of the backfield, had over 1,000 yards, took advantage of a situation in which there were injuries, obviously, and he had to be the man last year. So with him back, Christian Clark, CJ Baxter was phenomenal in spots the year before as a 5-star. Is that the lineup right there, those 3 guys? How is that going to stack up in regards to running back reps?
So yeah, this is I think the most overrated position by the national media. Everyone has them as like a top 3 room. I disagree with that because of the injuries. Christian Clark is coming back from an Achilles injury, even though I do think him and CJ Baxter are the 2 most talented backs on the team. CJ Baxter, complete knee reconstruction, MCL, LCL, PCL, all of it destroyed, had to get that. He hasn't even been cleared for contact yet. I like Trey Wisner, but he's not a number 1 running back on a national championship team. I've said that. People have not been happy with that. I said that in the middle of last year, and it proved to be true. He's just not. I like him as a running back, but if he's your number 1 back, you're not going to win a national championship. So I'm hoping CJ Baxter does come back healthy. I'm hoping Christian Clark comes back healthy. Another guy that can take that next step is Jarrett Gibson, who was also a 4-star freshman last year. Played well. His issue was fumbling. So if he can fix that, I also like him in this rotation. Now, is it a deep room? Absolutely. You have those 4 guys plus a really good running back as a freshman in James Simon, who I like. I think he might be one of the best all-around freshman running backs coming in. And then you have Ricky Stewart as well. I don't expect him to play that much, but I do like the room. Like if you guaranteed me health, I agree. It's a top 3 room in the country. But the problem is 2 of the 3 most talented guys are not healthy coming into the year.
Trey Weissner, Mark. See, this is what happens to me during the offseason. I saw him play a lot of football last year, knew how to pronounce his name, but in the meantime, boom, don't hear about him for 6 months. And then I was just came out that way. So, yeah. So, Matthew, this is a special question just for you because I tend to see from time to time that you get a bit irked by bad takes out there. So are there any recent bad takes that you've come across, whether it's at SEC Media Days, anywhere that you've come across that?
Yeah, so I get a potty mouth. I need to stop sometimes. So, but yeah, I don't know how you deal with it, Mark. I don't deal with stupidity very well, especially when I don't know if it's either for clickbait for some people or they actually believe it. And I don't know which one's worse there. Today, Tyler Atkinson committed to Texas and an Ohio State fan. I let me say this first. Mark, if someone had 40 games in high school football and they had 275 tackles in those 40 games, because that's what Tyler Atkinson has. Is that a good football player? Or no, sorry, I underrated it. 475 tackles in 40 games. 475. Do you think that's a good football player?
It's a pretty stout, almost over 11 tackles per game.
Yeah, he's going to end his career with over 600 tackles. So that's pretty crazy. And someone said, well, high school stats don't matter. And I have to think, well, I think stats matter when you're looking at a high school football player, but, that's just me. In recruiting, I'd like my high school recruits to have good stats.
So this is where I stand on any argument when it comes to stats, recruiting rankings, all those things. If you're going to talk and argue recruiting rankings or recruiting in general, let's say, and see who's got the better class, that's where you start. It's like if we were going to talk about who are the 10 greatest quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, we'd start with stats. Now, we wouldn't just throw the stats down and then say, well, that's that. No, we put context to it and say, well, he had to deal with a bad offensive line or he didn't have any receivers for 5 years. We'd throw, he was clutch. We would start to bring context to it. But yes, they keep track. Every play, folks, has a winner and a loser. There are stats kept on every play and they mean something. If the running back ran 70 yards for a touchdown, it might have been the easiest 70 yards imaginable, or it may have been breaking 18 tackles. Yeah, there's context to it, but it's a success regardless. So, yeah, that's
and especially
silly.
at a position like middle linebacker, I bet I don't even know this. If you looked up the 10 highest tackle totals for a middle linebacker in NFL history, I bet 7 to 8 of those guys are no questionably like Hall of Famers and
sure
7 of the 10 best guys that have ever played the position. Like middle linebacker is definitely one of those positions you kind of have to look at tackles, I feel like. So yeah, I get pretty frustrated with stuff like that. But overall, no, that's just the latest thing that I couldn't believe someone said. But I agree. There's so many other things that go into it, but that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah. Matthew Miller with the Texas Channel, breaking down the horns each and every Monday at 8 Eastern. So get on over there, check out Matthew and the rest of the crew talking Texas football.